Hello, everyone, and welcome to MyCHN podcast, Health Conversations Without Barriers. This is Mariela and the CHN gang.
Hi all, my name is Olga.
Elijah.
Benjamin.
Well, welcome, and thank you for clicking on this podcast. So today we'll be covering the new Netflix series, Worst Roommate Ever. And the first episode is called Call Me Grandma, and it's about a lesser known serial killer, Dorothea Puente. So the episode starts with an audio recording of a man and a woman, sort of like the questioning interrogation cops do when, they're trying to probe what the person knows, trying to get information. The setting is in Sacramento, 1988. And later on, we find out that the cop is interrogating the housekeeper, Dorothea Puente. And the music is very creepy here. So definitely kind of lets you know what's coming.
Yes, definitely. The way the show starts, it puts you in this dark mood automatically, and the music is so ominous. It makes you a little bit nervous. Like, what is going to happen?
I thought it was interesting too with the music, and then you got the kind of the vibe going, and something is like bad is coming, but then you got the backdrop of the sunny Sacramento, sunny California. It looked really nice. The neighborhood they were in was nice. It looked really cheerful.
Definitely. The detective's name is John Cabrera, retired Sacramento Police Department. And he talks about the development of the city, right? That it goes from a very suburban to later on very busy. But apparently there's a very severe homeless situation in that area. And this is where we meet Judy.
Yes, so the area is definitely very problematic. There's a lot of homelessness going on. There's a lot of alcoholism, and Judy is the social worker. She actually helps these people find homes and put them in with medical workers and help these people out.
Yes. First of all, social workers, they do the Lord's work, right? So they do very important work in the community. So this is where she meets Alvaro Gonzalez Montoya, Bert, and he had mental health problems. He was an immigrant from Costa Rica, and he and his family migrated here when he was 16. He had schizophrenia, and his family, they were trying to find help for him. So they put him in an institution for mental health. And here he received shock therapy. So he escaped from this institution, and, his family kind of lost contact with him. We don't know how he ended up all the way in Sacramento, but he was there, and he ended up in a detox center for alcoholics. Judy, being the great person that she is, she was trying to find him a home because, as we all know, social workers try to find that help for them.
Definitely Bird is a big part of the show because when I seen him, I kind of felt bad. He's so big, but deep inside he seems like a big child, and just the way he was raised and just the way his life turned out, you kind of feel sad for him, and you automatically know that he's a big part of this story.
Yes. So she learned about a boarding house run by Dorothea Puente in the community. So she was very well loved in the community. She would donate food, money, financial help to politicians. And she would house what they call in the documentary, the shadow people of the society, people with mental health problems, addictions, older people without children, without relatives, sick, disabled, etc. Do you guys remember how she funds this boarding house?
She takes the social security checks from the people that she's housing, basically, to fund it.
Yes, and that looks a little bit weird because she seems like such a sweet lady. She's helping out the community. She's giving away free food. She's helping out the elderly, but she's definitely having some money coming in from somewhere. So that's already seems suspicious.
Yes. So we find out that technically anyone could be a payee. So for example, if let's say I'm disabled, any one of you, Elijah, Benjamin, Olga, if I put you guys for you guys to receive my check, you guys will continue to get my check, my social security check. It will go to your bank account. Red flags, everyone, red flags. That's a loophole here. Keep a very close eye to that, dear listener. All right, so Judy does her due diligence and she visits Dorothea's house, right? And she saw no red flags. And then we meet John Sharp. Write him down because he's a very important person in this case. Judy later on says, Dorothea told me that she was independently wealthy, so she did not need to do this for financial gain. She just liked to help people. Right.
Yeah.
And
That
then
sounds
sus, very sus. And then she was Bert's payee. So she received the Social Security checks from Bert. And at the beginning, Troy was doing really well. He really liked, living there. And Judy could tell that he was doing well. But Judy was also very diligent. She was keeping up with his care. How was he doing? She just didn't, forgot about her cases. So I'm pretty sure she's just keeping up with all her cases from time to time. And this is where it gets a little sketchy, right? For everyone that was watching, because she called one time to Dorothea's home and Dorothea said that he was in Mexico with his brother. Dear listener, his family is from Costa Rica.
Yes, this is really suspicious when Bert's family started calling and Dorothea always making excuses or he's not there, he's somewhere else, and you already start thinking, this man has a mental illness. He can not pretty much travel by himself or he doesn't go out by himself. So he doesn't have the freedom to just go and disappear like that. So that's just brings a lot of suspicion. And you already know something wrong is happening to Bart.
And the social worker was saying it wasn't really like his personality to do that, to really go anywhere anyway. And that was really one of the things that raised red flags. I thought that was interesting too, because even if they're staying at a boarding house and they're and you call and you're like, oh, he's in a completely different country. I'm surprised. I don't even know if you can really even do that within the confines of social care like that.
You know what? Good question. I was not thinking of that. Like, I just thought it was like, from my point of view. So I'm from El Salvador, and if someone tells me I'm from Costa Rica and my family's from Costa Rica, and someone tells me, oh, he and his family went to Mexico, but you are not from Mexico. Like, I understand you could travel, but like your brother's just gonna pick you up like out of nowhere, go to Mexico?
That's a major red flag right there.
Red flags. So Judy felt that this was all very sketchy, very suspicious, and she felt that she needed to call the cops. So good for you, Judy. You felt that in your gut. You said something is not right here. I'm gonna call the cops, and she did it. And later on, Dorothea got someone to call Judy the day that Judy said the cops are gonna be there, like let's say on a Monday, right? So let's say you tell someone on a Friday, next Monday, the cops are gonna be there. So Dorothea got someone to call Judy and say, my name is Don Anthony, and I'm just letting you know that I saw Bert on the weekend and he left, bye. Like, how is that not like believable? How is that believable? How is that on anyone's mind believable? It reminds me of like, when you call the school and be like, I'm sick, and they hang up. That's what it reminded me of.
That is just, that somebody's trying to cover up, because that sounds not very believable.
All right. So obviously Judy said, look, I'm not 5. I wasn't born yesterday. I don't believe it. So Judy got the tea from John Sharp. You guys remember John Sharp? He was the tenant in that house. Pretty much John Sharp, all right, he didn't say this, but pretty much what he said was like, girl, no, none of us have been to Mexico and we will not be going. So technically he was like, look, if someone calls you and says, I went to Mexico, that's not true. And none of us have gone to Mexico. And then Judy says, she was trying to get more out of him. She's like, what is wrong here? What's going on here? And he said, look, she's digging a lot of holes in that backyard. So obviously Judy was like on red alert, right? She was like, okay, I need to do something.
That was red flag to me when he said that. I thought back to what they were mentioning earlier in the show, her past, where she had like a long kind of record. She had gotten into some fraud, and I was like, wow. Now it all kind of added up. Now I was like, okay, I already knew it wasn't looking very good for the patient.
So now we see Detective Cabrera. He technically tells us that her real name is Dorothea Gray, and she was born in Redlands, California in 1929. So I believe during the Great Depression. And, she had a very hard upbringing and very difficult. In 1948, she was convicted for forging checks. 1950s, she was a prostitute. Then she became a madam of a brothel. And then we meet Bill Wood. So Bill Wood is the district attorney officer, and he was part of the Malcolm McKenzie case. So he was he was an older gentleman that Dorothea met at the bar, and after 2 drinks, they were going to his place. And she technically roofied this man to rob him at his own house, okay? So he couldn't move, but he saw everything. So he was able to file a report and she got arrested. Then we find out she was also pretending to be a doctor. So she was a quack.
Yeah, that story was actually pretty interesting because I think we forgot to mention that Dorothea actually made herself look older. So in fact, she was around 50 years old. So she wasn't that old, but she made herself look like a grandma to pretty much, distract people and into thinking that she's, harmless, sweet little old lady. And that's how, we find out that she's really not that.
She looked at least 70 years old and that she was only 50. I think that's very interesting. I didn't even really take into account that she was born during the Great Depression, and she had been scamming really for decades up until the murders. I think the Great Depression probably did play like a role in it, because down the line she says, I used to be a good person at some point. And I'm like, wow, I wonder what happened between that and here.
Yeah. All right. So while she was pretending to be a doctor, she was doing the same thing to these ladies. She was roofing them and robbing them. So, she gets arrested and she goes with these are her charges: grand theft, forgery, admission to stupefying drugs, which I'm pretty sure that's kind of like the roofie part. She served only 5 years in 1982 for this. So
it wonders me how they let her go back and be a social worker, or since she had all this scams done and she served in jail. That's just the.
So she was not a social worker. She was a housekeeper. Like she owned a house. Yeah. So now we meet Bill Monroe. He's the son of Ruth Monroe. And this was another case of Dorothea. She was a pharmacist, and we learned from her son that Mrs. Monroe found her husband, Harold, and that's how Miss Monroe met Dorothea, because Dorothea knew Harold because he liked to visit bars and restaurants, and Dorothea was a cook at a bar and a club. So Miss Monroe and Dorothea became friends, and they decided to open a restaurant together, right? To be partners. It turns out it was all a scam. It was all pretty much for her to end up with the money and be able to scam this lady. It was really sad because after Harold died of cancer, Dorothy and Miss Monroe moved together as roommates.
Yeah, it seems like Dorothea had a long experience of scamming. She seems like she's an expert in this, and now she's about to do the biggest scam of her life. She's about to cross the lines, and yeah, what he did to Bert, what she did to Bert.
And you're right, she crosses the line.
The case with the woman who she opened the bar with, that one was particularly sad to me, just because she was a parent, and like her children, she was very involved in her children's life, and they kind of had to find her in a way, and she's just lying to the family's face. I think that was interesting to me.
She had like a lot of, how do I say this, the audacity of this woman, because she pretty much poisoned Miss Monroe, right, with several drugs, because they used to live together. And, you know, after your spouse's death, I can see how you could fall into a depression. And Miss Monroe was older, and pretty much she killed Miss Monroe. And the son said that everything that when his mom died, Dorothea called his sister, and everything she turned in from Mrs. Monroe was an empty purse.
Oh wow, that just is heartless. It's like you took everything from this lady and like thrown away a empty purse that just to imagine into to the family is just a disrespect.
Yes, the disrespect. And she called oh my gosh, guys, I'm pulling a blank, but where is it? The coroner's office? Yes, she called and she said that the roommate committed suicide. So
she's just doing anything to cover it up. She's making up any kind of lie. She doesn't even think if it makes sense. She's just trying to cover up her crimes.
Yes. And unfortunately, because the science was not, I mean, this was the 1980s, right? So the science was not as advanced. They were not able to prove otherwise. All right. So that was the case of Mrs. Monroe. And Dorothea was released in 1985. And she had to reinvent herself, right? Because she was out of jail, so it must be a little hard to find jobs and everything else. And so she started to take in tenants, even though she was not supposed to, and try to become a caretaker. This is where you see kind of like they were talking to Bill Wood. And remember, Bill Wood is the district attorney officer. So they were talking about Dorothea was not allowed to take care of people, especially because she was killing them, right? They didn't necessarily put murder in her. She didn't go to jail for that, but they were kind of like saying, hey, there's red flags here, the people she takes care of. So the director asked, was there any mechanism at place so that this would not happen to prevent this? And Wood says there was a lot of mechanisms. It was illegal for her. She knew that, but pretty much he was saying that, okay, so there's a very kind of lack of accountability here, because to me, why would you trust someone that went to jail for scamming to tell you the truth? It's kind of
weird. That doesn't make sense to me.
That is a good point. But I think at the same time, it is at the time period, it was a lot easier. And they mentioned that too. It was easier to be able to get away with what she was getting
Get
away
away.
with and present yourself a certain way, just because there wasn't as much data collection. You know what I mean? It was easier there was less barriers to entry to do things. And plus, the way she presented herself as a grandma, you know, that's enough to even convince a grown man that, okay.
Yes, and I remember somebody said, "Don't judge a book by its cover." And Dorothea had a heck of a cover because she did. She did really had a good image in the society, in the community. You know, she was helping out everybody, so nobody could even suspect her.
Yeah, I mean, that was crazy to me. Like, okay, so you guys are not gonna take accountability for the fact that y'all were supposed to check on her and not just believe her word, but okay. So, all right, the authorities didn't check, and she was running an unlicensed care facility for 2 years. In 1998, Judy filed a missing persons report, and she was on the right path here. She had an intuition and she went with her gut. So the house was in Sacramento, right? But the address is 1426 F Street. Detective Cabrera goes to ask about Bert, and everyone said the same thing, you know, that he went to Mexico, except John Sharp. He slipped a note to the officer saying, "She wants me to lie to you." I think everyone's really scared of Dorothea and was scared of like to talk.
I think at this point, everybody kind of figures out what happens because with everything leads to it. Everything leads to, you know, something's gonna happen. She's gonna take advantage of these people, of, you know, of their money, their social income.
Then we see an interrogation video of John and Detective Cabrera, and he spills all the tea, right? He says Dorothea was asking everyone to lie to the cops. And Dr. Cabrera, you know, after hearing this, he finds out that she was on parole. I like how Detective Cabrera says, Judy was persistent about us going in there and digging in the backyard. Like, he was like, you know, she was annoying us. Like, she was like really telling us at all times, like, please go in there and dig.
Yes, she had to do that because she knew something is hiding in that backyard.
I'm glad he did it though, because at the time they didn't really have any evidence that could connect her to killing Bert or really anyone else. That's kind of, and you have to kind of have permission to even be able to do that.
You're right. And then it cuts to Judy saying, "Yeah, I wanted them to dig." It it just cracked me up. Judy, you're a real homie, so that's good. All right. So during the search, he find a lot of diazepam, and diazepam is a controlled substance. So it can cause paranoid, suicidal ideation, and impair memory, judgment, and coordination. So pretty much it makes you dizzy, right? So she was using a lot of drugs to drug people to make, you know, kind of people not move and stuff, sedatives in a way. All right, so Dr. Cabrera made her feel like the search was almost over.
Yes, I know she also used tranquilizers. That's what they found out later.
You know, he kept finding all these like random pills everywhere and like drugs everywhere. Like she had them in every single like crook and cranny of the house. And then he asked, "Hey, do you mind if we dig the backyard?" And she's like, "What for?"
Back to the drugs, it really makes me wonder what kind of control did she have on the people who she didn't kill as well. I mean, just think about how scared they were. If she was drugging them, they said she drugged her roommate, her first roommate, like over time is what her kids thought. So it's really kind of makes you wonder if you're dizzy, you're incapacitated, you can't really think straight. What kind of control is being exerted on you day to day, and what kind of fear are you living in? It's very interesting.
You know what? I was not thinking of that because these are people that if they had, a lot of them, some of them had mental illness or they were defenseless in a way. She was taking advantage of defenseless people. And if someone has a mental illness or, has Parkinson's or something of the sort, people already think, oh, it's their ailment. It's their, they're probably not paying attention if they said something too.
Yeah, she just really had no heart. She just was, heartless. She didn't care.
Then after she's like, why do you want to dig? And he's like, well, Detective Cabrera says, well, the social worker. And he's kind of like, I need to get her off my back.
Was he scared of her too? Sounds like.
Because Judy is like, you need to dig there, get some shovels. And he's like, well, I need to get Judy off my back. Like, let me dig. And oh my gosh, this is where it was already dark. This gets darker, okay? Because while he was digging, he's like, I found some trash, and later on, he's like, I find something that's kind of like beef jerky. And yeah, it was not beef jerky. Well, kind of.
Yeah, he's digging. They're all back there digging after they got permission, and he's pulling these pieces of. He said it was like a leathery kind of substance, and then his shovel hits something hard, and then so he keeps digging to find out what it is, and he pulls on it, and it's like a femur bone, and then he keeps going, and he finds the bone is attached to a whole skeleton, and then he realizes those leathery things that he was pulling as he was digging, pulling from the dirt, was skin. It was human flesh.
That was dark. All right. So after that, all of them are like, hey, we need to keep digging. So Detective Cabrera was not buying what Dorothea was saying. Like, look, I don't know why that bone is there. I don't know who put it there.
Yeah, so when the detective is asking her, Dorothea, she denying everything. She never even flinched. She keeps emotionless, and I believe she keeps saying that the people died and I had to bury them there. So I did a good thing. I was scared to call in. I was scared to call the police because I was under the parole. So I just had to bury them in my backyard. That was really heartless of her to even not even having any kind of emotion or any kind of empathy to these people.
Yeah. And the thing was that she kept cashing these checks, so she didn't tell anyone these people died. So that was kind of like her downfall, because she usually, if someone dies, you should call authorities and let them know. But the thing is, once you let them know, hey, this person died, they will no longer be getting their Social Security checks. So that's how they got her. They're like, you kill these people for money. It wasn't, they did not die of natural causes. You killed these people. I lose it here because, okay, so Dorothea, because they keep digging, right? Because they're not buying what she's selling. So she said, am I under arrest? So when you ask a cop, am I under arrest? They have to say yes or no. And at that moment, she was not a suspect. And I don't see how she was not a suspect. I don't understand that, but okay.
Yes, and I know they keep digging, and now they found this another body. They keep finding bodies, and this one is actually looks like a really big body, and everybody start realizing that might be Bert, because Bert was a big guy, and he's still missing. So probably that's who that is.
It was, unfortunately.
I was gonna ask, do you remember if they said how she was able to carry those bodies out there? Because I mean, she was a small woman, 50 years old, and there were several bodies out there, and Bert was a big man, well over 200 pounds. And then on top of that, I think somewhere in there, it also said that the holes she dug reached like, I mean, what, 20 feet or something? How far down did it go? I thought I heard 20 feet. Did it say anything on how she did that?
So I don't think they didn't mention it, but the first thing I thought was like she didn't dig that hole, and she had the other guys in there and the other tenants that were in there. I believe that she got to do it. She made them help. But then again, they did say John Sharp did say she's digging a lot of holes out there. I don't know. Maybe she just looked like that. Maybe she was stronger than she looked.
Yeah, but good question. I honestly, I didn't think of that, but I do think maybe she was making the other tenants do what she was saying.
I mean, she was drugging them, so she could probably control them as well.
Yeah, good points. So we find out that since she was not under arrest, they let her go get coffee at her nephew's place. She runs away. She runs away. Obviously, she knows what she did, so she runs away. They put a bolo, and we find out bolo is be on the lookout. It's like a wanted person, and they're running all these flyers through like advertisement through the TV, like, hey, this person is of interest. And it was like, it's crazy because to me, it's like they let her go. They literally should have just kept her in the house.
For me, it was funny at this point because now this old lady looks like some Hollywood star or something. She has a whole manhunt against her, and everybody's searching for her. And now I think she ends up in LA. And I'm like, oh, she's living her best life. She just going over there, trying to start over her life, probably.
And I know in like in the series, an older gentleman, he saw her at a club, right? Because remember, she used to pick up men at the club and go and roofie them and rob them. So he's probably like, oh no. He's probably like, I'm not going home with her. He called the cops, and that's how they found her at this like motel. And they start digging into her past, right? So who is she? Like, this is not, we don't know everything about her. Then we know about other cases. Everson Gilmouth, and he was, bless his soul, because he was engaged to Dorothea. And once he was engaged, his family could not find him. So they were pen pals. He met her through letters when she was in jail. So, he moves in with her, and after like a month or two, he goes missing. They found in 1986 a body of a John Doe. So John Doe is when they found the body of a male, and they don't know how to identify them. The same with a woman. When they found a body of a woman, they called them Jane Doe. And he was wrapped in plastic and duct tape. So that was kind of like how she would rob bodies.
Yes, I believe in the end, they found 9 bodies in her yard. 9 bodies, that's a lot. And you can only imagine, I think they said she made over $100,000 on those people, on those social payments. So she definitely had, some money saved up so she can be on the run, but that never happened. Thanks God she got caught.
9 bodies, and it was only 2 years. I don't know what the math on that is, but that's a little startling.
Yeah, serial killer for sure. The way she lied to his family was because she was sending postcards to her sister saying like, he's fine, he's having some heart trouble, and out of nowhere, he left me.
Oh yes, before I was just curious. They interviewed the neighbors, but they never saw anything, which I thought was weird. I mean, a woman digging that many holes. I'm guessing she did it late at night, but I'm surprised she never got caught.
I think the reason why nobody even thought of her is because she had a really good cover, like we said, like she had a really good image in the community. She was helping out people. She was donating and she was giving away free food. So that's why nobody really cared. I mean, maybe she's gardening back there, I don't know.
So because all of this, right, they're running on TV and the news is following up with her story. Mrs. Monroe so goes to the district attorney, John O'Mara, so that he includes his mother's case in the list of the people that she killed. So Dorothea was charged with 9 counts of murder. And I'm gonna say the names of the victims. Leona Carpenter, 81 years old, died in 1988. Dorothy Miller, 65 years old, died in 1988. Bert Montoya, 52, died in 1988. Benjamin Fink, 55, died in 1988. James Gallup, 64, died in 1988. Vera Faye Martin, 65, died in 1988. Betty Palmer, 65, died in 1988. Emerson, 80, died in 1988. Miss Morrison, 1986.
Yes, this is very sad, but I believe she was only convicted for 3 of those murders. So I think the jury only found her guilty of 3 out of 9, but still, she still had been convicted to, forever in jail. So, but those people never got justice, though. Those people never got justice, and yeah, that's kind of sad.
And everything was for the Social Security checks. It really was for that. That was her motivation.
Yeah, in the end of the day, most crimes are tied to money, power, and yeah, this is just one of those.
So, guys, this comes to the end of the case. She died in prison. So at the end, going back to what Elijah said, she said she used to be a good person. We don't know when, to be honest, but this is the story of Dorothea Puente. And don't forget to demonstrate your love by sharing this podcast with your friends and family, or giving us a review on Spotify or iTunes. Until next time.
Bye, all.
Everyone.
Bye.